Hey everyone, this is Alex sitting in for Leo, who's down at E3, and I'm here with Don McAllister, Keith Lang, Aaron Hillegas, and Ihnatko, and of course we're covering all of the keynote happenings at WWDC. So stay tuned for MacBreak Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 250 for June 6th, 2011, cloudy with a chance of music. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website or blog. For a free 14-day trial, go to squarespace.com/MacBreak. And be sure to check out their annual plans for savings of up to 20% off. And by GoToMeeting. Today's mobile world makes easy-to-use collaboration software more than nice to have. It's a necessity. For your free 30-day trial, visit gotomeeting.com/MacBreak. And by Carbonite. Backing up the files on your PC or Mac is safe and easy with Carbonite. For a free trial plus 2 free months with purchase, go to carbonite.com, offer code MacBreak. Hi, everyone. Welcome to MacBreak Weekly. We are here after the Monday after keynote. I'm going to start over again because Can I start? Can you just do the edit?
Of course you may.
I was a little distracted by a bunch of stuff going on. I haven't done this where I haven't done the mix, and so now
let's fix camera one.
Let's fix it. Let's go ahead and fix this here.
Yeah, it's not enough headroom for Keith.
Sorry, I keep moving.
Okay, no more moving. Everybody stay where you are. Okay, Alex, whenever you're ready.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to MacBreak Weekly. This is Alex, sitting in for Leo, who's down at E3, and we are post-keynote for WWDC, and Steve was there just for a little bit, but we are going to do some recap of and get some added input over what we saw there. Here with me in the studio, Keith Lang from Skitch and also Prototypes.
So, Alex, it's great to be here. It's nice to be back.
I know you're never here, and then you're here all the time. It's great.
Yeah, so, it's a lot of fun. It's just more people at this studio. It is what the studio needs. Just more and more people inside.
This place is getting getting to a certain level of density where it's time to move to a new larger studio, which we're getting close to. So, and joining us over Skype is Aaron Hillegas from Big Nerd Ranch. Hey, Aaron.
Hey, Alex. And I was actually there.
So you actually got the clean feed.
I got the clean feed.
Yeah.
It was a little like the moon landing. It didn't really happen. They just put out a feed, and we're all going to pretend like it happened.
yeah, because it's your was probably Ultra HD compared to ours, which was a very highly compressed, sometimes not working stream. So you may have more information than we do, related to this. So anyway, let's do a rundown. Of course, what Apple covered. Was Lion, iOS, and the iCloud, of course. It's something that we all knew was coming. And what we're really looking for here is we're going to go from the developer's perspective as to what we saw here. Lion, of course, $29. So Apple has gotten pretty darn aggressive about the pricing. It seems like this has become Keith. This has become the new standard.
I think so. I mean, maybe there is some pressure with. I mean, everything's getting cheaper, right? On iOS, on Mac apps, and now the OS is. They've just decided, we don't need to make our money here. We can make our money somewhere else. And
the thing to remember is that this is an iOS, and it's available on all of the apps all the computers that you register to. I'm not sure what the limit is. I've heard 5. I've never gone over 5, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But with all the other apps in the store, you're able to just simply reinstall these over and over and over again to the different applications that you have. So really, if you have 5 computers, if you have a family of computers, you're talking about $6 a computer to install this. Aaron, do you think this seems like it's a good thing for developers because it kind of moves, it allows the entire user base to continue to move forward and not drag their feet?
It definitely does. I mean, as a developer, you always want to use the latest and greatest because it's so nifty. But when people are reluctant to upgrade, you often have to do backwards compatibility and make compromises just based on older machines. One thing I'll be interested to see is what the more security-conscious users do. A lot of people do not actually have their Macs on the internet as a result of their security caution, mainly when we're talking about intelligence agencies and things like that. But I don't know how they're going to be able to upgrade.
That's an interesting question. I hadn't really thought of that. But yeah, that if you're not putting your computer ever on the internet, now I think that one of the things that somewhere is in there is in many ways the Mac App Store is not necessarily for intelligence agencies, for the average consumer. It's probably one of the more secure ways to add applications. We've heard over the last week that we had malware that has been kind of moving around through the system. If you decide as a consumer that you're only going to be buying through the Mac App Store, of course, that stuff has been theoretically vetted to some degree by Apple. So it's an interesting process in that kind of walled-in garden approach to the process. So for $29, we're seeing a variety of things. New touch gestures. It seems that the mouse is out. It seems like they're really kind of pushing that through. Mission control, which of course is kind of a mixture of spaces and expose. Photo booth, which just has a bunch of funny semi-useless features that'll keep my kids very busy for hours. The launch pad, which of course will allow you to pop, and we'll go back through some of these, but the launch pad. Versions, which of course lets you finally save, auto-saving and auto-saving in versions. The Mac App Store, of course. AirDrop, which is your peer-to-peer file sharing, so it allows you to share a lot of these things over Wi-Fi without a lot of setup. And a new version of Mail, which has conversation views and a variety of things, and maybe it'll actually work. So of all of these, Keith, what really stood out for you as far as the Lion upgrades?
Well, I mean, the price. Aside from the price,
exactly. Which is stunning.
Which it works two ways too. I mean, it's like Aaron alluded to. Basically, as a consumer, it's great, but also as a developer of applications, it means everybody upgrades. Right. You don't have to worry about people using the last thing because everyone's gone and upgraded all their machines, and that means you can just use all those latest APIs and technologies, whatever, in your apps. So that alone, I think, means that there's no longer you can build apps that no longer have to feel that they have to rely on this a couple of generations old OS. Like, you can just say we only support the latest stuff. It's cheap. Go get it.
Well, do you think this actually puts a lot of pressure on the when you're a large enterprise? Something we were kind of talking about a little bit during the stream. You're a large enterprise and you have to install 50 or 100 or 1,000 of these. That number has to start adding up. You have to start. I don't know how this rolls out to enterprise, but it seems like the OS 10 is becoming so inexpensive that even if the computer is a little bit more expensive, it's becoming almost a no-brainer to have it. To have OS 10. In a lot of ways. Obviously, you have the general infrastructure of how you want to manage your system, but it seems like a lot of those things are easier, especially for small business. I think if you have a small business of 5,
yeah, absolutely.
Like a little computer, it's very easy to kind of maintain all of these things. Aaron, from a developer's perspective, where do you see the biggest upgrades to Lion? What do you think is going to make the biggest difference in your day-to-day programming?
Oh, the new document architecture is really fascinating. The autosave, the versions, and keeping track of deltas. It's a very nifty step forward for the whole idea of the document and the document changing over time. I think that's going to have a huge effect on what we do.
Yeah, I mean, so it really to kind of back that up is not only are a lot of these document things available in, of course, what they were showing were numbers and pages and so on and so forth, but this is an API that's available to the developers. I mean, that's why we're talking about it to some degree in WWDC, and so you're going to be able to write things, a lot of these capabilities. Do you have to write the capabilities, or is it just built into the file system?
It's a little of both. You do have to do some special stuff. For example, there's now asynchronous writing. So you need to be able to deal with the fact that your writing may be going on in a different thread from the user interface. And so you do have to, as a programmer, keep track of it.
Well, and that's one of the questions that when we looked at this, one of the questions that I had was, what happens if you've got two people on two different devices writing to the same file at the same time? This is a typical thing with Google Docs. You'll open it up and you'll have two different people editing, which usually, it kind of keeps track of it and it shows you where different people are and what they're doing and so on and so forth. But it doesn't sound like this is that refined yet. You're basically just saving to that cloud. Do we see the possibility of mischief here or problems?
So there's actually two issues here. So you're talking about Lion and its autosave mechanism, and then iCloud. I wasn't really ready to talk about that yet.
Right. Okay.
So we're on Lion. It's not very much of a concurrent document support is not really there. It's really just a step forward in the idea of saving and loading your files from the file system.
Yeah, so it's not. It's really, and it's not designed for many people to use. It's designed for a person to have access to all their files across all their devices, and they're assuming that there's only one of you. Now, Keith, what showed up for you in these line upgrades that was the most interesting from your perspective? Beyond the price.
Beyond the price. The whole syncing thing. I mean, the whole, where they were leading to was this cloud service, which we'll get to. But so many things touch in. Like they've built support into the documents to be able to handle that intelligently.
Right.
To handle well, like AirDrop actually is kind of related. I quite like that idea that. I mean, just transferring a file between two Macs is often much harder than it should be, and so that little feature where it makes it easy for you and another machine to just quickly do a peer-to-peer transfer.
Well, and this has been a big issue for me actually, is being creating documents on my iPad or trying to get documents to my iPad. Okay, now I'm gonna have to plug it in, and I'm going to have to transfer a file over, and I have to figure out where to put it in iTunes. And this has been kind of a constant issue that has, for me, because I really kind of gotten into the, I'm the prototypical client that this is going to fix a lot of problems for, because I have a couple different laptops, an iPad, an iPhone, and I'm kind of seamlessly trying to go back and forth between all of them all at the same time. And there's a lot of there's a lot of wrecks that are going on as I try to figure all of this stuff out. This does seem to kind of, tie a lot of those things back together. Do you see this progression? I mean, it looks like, when you look at the way the mission control is working and the way some of the apps are popping up, this does still look like this slow progression of Lion becoming more like iOS, or almost becoming, going more and more that direction. Do we think that trajectory is continuing?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Mail, the new Mail application, it's the iPad Mail with a bit more functionality. And I mean, they've got some really nice stuff where they're handling threading in a much prettier way, so you can see your conversation being cut down. But I mean, obviously, like Steve Jobs said, one of the biggest problems, the pain points was everything's going fine, and then people start to deal with the file system, and then it gets a lot harder.
Right.
And so there's these things here. They just say, well, let's remove those completely. I mean, maybe functionality is going to go a little bit away, but overall the experience is going to be easier for most people. Well,
and a lot of times I've said this before on the show is that I really view Apple as this 90-90 company, which is what will 90% of the people need 90% of the time. And that's really and that keeps it simple, because most of us want the same things, in the core, and then there's all these little extra things that we want to do. Aaron?
Yeah, besides the gesture stuff, which is obviously coming straight from the ideas of the iPad, the full screen applications, making it really promoting that as a standard feature of all Mac applications is going to make them look a lot more like iPad applications.
Yeah, and so it's. I'm still kind of surprised that we haven't seen this kind of merge. I almost felt like we would see something where you could almost start running your iPad. There's a lot of apps that I would have on my iPad that I would really like to run on my computer. Like they're simple, and they're like almost like widgets, and they're things that I'd like to see on both, and we haven't seen that yet. But we'll. Speaking of the iPad, of course, there were a lot of upgrades to also to the iOS. and we're gonna get to those in just a second. But we're going to take this minute to thank one of our sponsors. Is GoToMeeting. Of course, GoToMeeting is the way. It's today's, when all of the stuff we're talking about here, is between our iPad and our iPhone and our computers. All of us are traveling everywhere. We're all over the place. We have our companies are spread out all over the world. Our clients are spread out all over the world. Our students are spread out all over the world. And GoToMeeting is a great way to kind of find some sanity, in all of that. So, this is just one of those ways that you can, whether you want to streamline a communication, you can drastically. I mean, you're basically not. You don't need to have everyone fly in anymore. You don't need, it's great to have those face-to-face, conversations, but at the speed of development that we need now, a lot of times we just need to do that a lot. It's just not going to, it doesn't work to try to sync up everybody's travel schedules. You can hold as many meetings as you want with GoToMeeting. You can do it on a Mac or a PC. You can use it for, if you want to do product reviews, sales presentations, training sessions, all of those things can be done right from your desk. And so you don't need to, you don't need to have something, the phone calls, sometimes you don't have the screens. And GoToMeeting manages all of that, so you can get everybody onto the conversation, show them their screen, go through the presentations. And I have to admit that I sit inside of GoToMeetings 3 or 4 times a week, either within our company. We do trainings through a larger version called GoToSeminar. We have tons of meetings with all of our clients, and they're initiating some of the GoToMeetings. We're initiating. It's pretty much the standard. So if you're interested in taking advantage of GoToMeeting, definitely get your 30-day free trial, so you can try it out for 30 days, and then after that you can decide if it works. But GoToMeeting.com/MacBreak. Definitely check that out and see if it's something that you could use within your business. But if you're having a lot of those meetings and you're trying to figure out how you're going to get everybody to sync up and be able to share screens and talk about those things, this is really the easiest way to do it. There's not a lot of installation. It's just you get these little reminders, and it keeps track of it all, and it does all the things that you wish you could do, sending out all the reminders that I never do. You just let them do it. Let them do it in the cloud. So anyway, GoToMeeting.com/MacBreak for your free 30-day trial. So thanks again for GoToMeeting. So now let's talk about iOS. We have, of course, they talked a little bit about the marketing numbers, over 200 million iOS devices. And in the first 14 months, they've sold 25 million iPads. And so it is 14 billion apps downloaded, not million, but billion apps downloaded from the App Store. And they had a checkout. They said they paid out more than $2.5 billion. They had a big check, actually, to show us that was written out to developers. And I just want to know what company is called Developers, how they got $2.5 billion. Anyway, so developers have gotten a lot of money, and of course 130 million books have been downloaded. And got a little bit of a outside sound there coming from Aaron. We'll see if we do you have a train going by? No?
I do. I have someone vacuuming outside my hotel room.
Oh, how sweet! How sweet! There's always something. So, anyway, so of course we had some of the marketing numbers there talking about it, but more importantly, we have a lot of new features. Notification Center. It really looks like they've vastly improved or completely rewritten notification. Was this something that really stuck out for you, Keith?
Absolutely. I think it stuck out for everybody who ever used an iPhone. Notification, and especially if you look at the competition, how notifications,
how seamless and elegant it was elsewhere.
Yeah, well, how it could do more than one notification, kind of thing.
Right.
And I think they've come up with a nice solution. It's hard to say what it'd be like until you use it.
Right. So now when you're in any application, when you get a notification, it shows up at the very top. You'll see like a little. But when you click on that, you're not getting just that notification. You're going to the notification center.
We can swipe down from the top of the screen.
Right.
I think how it works.
Right. If you tap the notification, it actually takes you into that application and shows you what the notification was concerning. And swiping down would actually bring out the whole list.
Okay, so you can tap to get just go straight to handle that one issue, and swiping down gives you the whole kit and caboodle.
That's right.
Kit and caboodle. That's my new. I've decided that's the new.
That's the new hip term.
The new hip term. I've decided that today. So also newsstand. So now you can have background download. So you have magazines. a lot of us have had trouble trying to organize all these magazines because they're all coming as separate applications or separate pieces, and you know, I have like a whole little section where all the little magazines are there, and so it does make sense that Newsstand is pulling those together. Aaron, are you using a lot of magazines? Do you read a lot of magazines on your iPad?
I actually don't. I read books on my iPad, but I don't tend to read magazines, and maybe it's because they all came with separate applications.
Right. No, I've had this odd experience where I stopped buying magazines because I wanted to use them on my iPad, but once I got onto my iPad, I didn't actually read them. So now it's there, and I think this might. I don't know if I'm a sign of the times of this weird in between where I don't feel like I really want to carry paper around anymore, but I also am finding that the format doesn't really work on the iPad as nearly. I mean, to me, the flow that has been really working is Flipboard. You know, Flipboard is probably my most used application on the iPad. It's my every morning. You know, I'm having my coffee and you know looking at all the different pieces of things. But a lot of the other ones that have a lot more complex interfaces haven't really gotten to. Are you reading any magazines, Keith?
For me, it's just Flipboard. Really is it's
which is driving all these newspaper companies crazy.
Yeah,
that Flipboard is but it's.
I mean, it's the experience is beautiful and
seamless,
new. You know, it's not trying to emulate a bit of dead tree. And
well, what's interesting, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that we would expect. In fact, it's a little inefficient, that whole like go to contents and then go hit it again to see the whole thing. And of course, they have to do all of that to keep people to some degree happy about passing those page views back. But I have to admit that's to me that's the most seamless. And I'm not looking for the bells and whistles. I'm not looking for the extra video that I thought I'd want. You know, I just want this seamless thing where I can kind of flip through stuff.
Yeah, just getting.
But I'm not clear on how publishers are going to publish their magazines. Right now, there's no standard format for the data because everyone has written their own reader. What is the format of the data going to be? Are people going to give PDFs and then videos and then some sort of an XML document to tie them together?
Yeah, and that's.
Anyone know?
I have no idea. I mean, I think that's been a big failing on Apple's side, is not building proper publishing tools for the iOS. You know, I think that is something that it would make sense to either decide that something like a DVD Studio Pro or Pages, or I mean, like for instance, Pages takes all that data. You've got multimedia. You've got you can put movies and images and so on and so forth. It seems like it would make sense to have templates that were built into Pages that would let you build magazines for iOS. You know, the template that'll make everything work. Inside of that'll automatically export it out as some kind of application or some applet or whatever, however it's going to pop it back out. But it does seem like we've seen everybody's doing it differently right now, and I think that's the real challenge.
If you look at the success of the Hype application on the Mac App Store,
right,
which lets you build basically Flash type animation.
Right.
I mean, it's the app itself is obviously designed that people are familiar with Flash, and it's laid out in the same way, and it's been hugely successful. And it outputs dynamic CSS, HTML5 stuff. That seems to indicate just the demand that there is for better publishing. Well,
I think there'd be a huge, and I don't think it has to be complicated, but yeah, something that's standard in WYSIWYG that lets you just kind of throw stuff together that's going to be published. I know that for us that would be a big deal. As far as building training documents and all kinds of other pieces and support materials that are more than PDFs. That aren't just a PDF; they're actually a living document that can kind of move forward. So we'll see if that continues to move forward. We also have updates to Twitter. So Twitter now is like pretty much part of the operating system at this point. It's completely supported. So it's a single sign-on. So you sign on at the phone level. And then every document that needs a Twitter sign-on is getting access to that. It seems like this was more. This is a big deal for Twitter. I mean, I think that it's a good thing for Apple too. But I think that more than anything else, I mean, this is a huge win for Twitter because I mean, this is making it really just part of the iPhone at this point. Aaron, do you see does Apple get more out of it than it seems?
Well, it seems that what Apple did is they went and they looked at a lot of the popular applications that were being used by lots and lots of people and said, what can we integrate into the operating system so it's right there? And the idea of being able to post photos to Twitter, I mean, there were a bunch of apps that did that. Or you look at something like Instapaper, when they added their reader to Safari. They were really looking for general purpose applications that had become really popular, and then we're adding them to the operating system. And as a developer, one thing you have to ask yourself then is, should I take the time to solve a general problem if immediately after it becomes profitable, Apple's going to turn around and write the same thing and integrate it in with the operating system?
Well, yeah, we saw this not only with this, but with the other things we're talking about. Safari, of course, has tabbed interfaces now. That's great. But we saw it with reminders and camera. There was a lot, there's a lot of applications out there that do reminders.
You could hear the audience just going, ooh.
Yeah, exactly. I think those are the two that I really saw where it felt like Apple just dug into the developer. It was like I don't know if this is the place to really show those. So, these are all the, that's got, Aaron, would you say that those are the two that probably scared the developers the most? They really dug into.
I saw developers leaving the hall both clapping and tears streaming down their face at the same time.
Yeah, it was. I mean, when you look at so there's all these different reminder things, and the problem is that even though that they are very individual and very powerful and do different things than what Apple's does, the challenge that you always have to get into is that if Apple's is good enough, people won't use anything else. Just because it's all integrated into the system.
Yeah, that integration is like their notifications are when I'm at the store, show me my shopping list.
Right.
That kind of deep-seated integration is, I think, probably hard to compete with.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's the real issue there. The camera had a big. I mean, so the reminders were really interesting. We'll see how they work. The camera, of course, fixed many, I think, of the problems that a lot of people have had with camera. Number one is it felt like you could go get a coffee in Afghanistan before it opened. You'd hit the okay, I'm ready to, and something's happening and I want to take a photo, and then you're like, I'm kind of known. My wife knows that I'm about to take a photo because she sees me shaking my iPhone like it's gonna make it go any faster. But I hit it and I'm like, come on! And my son's doing something really cute, and by the time it gets to it, it's no longer there. It's gone. And so now they've worked very hard. I think a lot of that has to do, that slow startup was it grabbing the photo library. Mm-hmm. So the larger your library is, and I have to admit the reason mine takes a long time is that I don't think I've deleted anything since I had my first iPhone, and I think it's just slowly passed on. It's like my visual document system. And so so it takes a long time to open, but by not doing that immediately or not looking at that immediately, it is much faster to open. You can now use, of all things, the volume button.
Hurrah!
Yeah. So I know all the folks at Camera Plus are just going, so you can now use the volume button to take pictures, which just makes so much more sense when you're trying to treat your camera like
when you're trying to hand your camera to somebody else and they've never used an iPhone camera, and you're like, you need to touch this little thing on the not there over and it's easier to take that photo by having it and by not sitting there tapping the front of the screen to actually put that together. Photo editing built into the camera, again, a lot of these things are things that a lot of other camera software was doing. Now, to be fair, I think a lot of these camera folks, if they put it out not in the last month but earlier on, if they had a solid application, I think most of them made a profit. I mean, it's not like they're losing money on the thing, but it is. And as a developer, I know that I've always, we develop some apps for the Mac, and I know that we always look at every upgrade to Final Cut or Motion as this might be the end of our software. But it might be the start of something new.
Well, and we're looking for the new features that we can possibly take advantage of, and so on and so forth. So, I think that is the danger, is that Apple is active. This is the difference, and Apple is actively developing software and trying to make things easier.
Now, if we're talking about how the developers are crying on the way out of the hall, I think that for the telecoms, iMessage was the moment where they started getting a little weepy.
Yes. Yes.
So the big division when you were talking about the difference between your Mac and your iPhone is that the iPhone has SMS but no iChat, and your computer has iChat but no SMS. And so by creating iMessage, they sort of took the telecoms out of the whole thing. And they were charging a lot for those SMSs. That's a big profit center for the telecoms.
Well, and here's the question. Is the Is there a way for you to do this to the computer? It seemed like they were talking about all iOS device to iOS device. I didn't see a way to do iMessages to. They didn't seem to show it going to a desktop computer.
They didn't show it, but I think it was implied by one of the slides. I'll have to go back and look again.
Okay. Yeah. So because that is the big thing, is being able to tie that in, and not only that, that's a big lock. You know what I mean? Because I know I spend a lot of time sending messages out, and probably 80% of the people that I know that I'm sending messages to are on an iPhone. So I think that, yeah, definitely this seems to lock people in. Like you want everybody to have an iPhone so you can do the iMessaging. You know, the big thing is being able to send the video and photos and so on and so forth. That's a big deal when you're talking about, you know, no matter how big that data is. I mean, we're getting our 5 gigs per month, you know, for most. You know, on my iPhone, I have unlimited or whatever, but I'm paying, you know, even in the U.S., you're paying whatever, $1.29 or $1.19 per MMS. You know, if you want to send, if you're text messaging someone a picture, it's costing real money.
Yeah, I mean, and in Australia, for example, we don't have the same history of just unlimited data, and so this kind of thing, you know, approach carefully. If your iPhone starts synchronizing gigabytes and gigabytes, might be a surprise. So.
Well, and I think that a lot of the synchronization, it looks like, is going through mostly Wi-Fi. So the iMessages is going through, I think, 3G and Wi-Fi, but I think that most of the syncing that they're talking about, which we'll talk about in a second, I think is mostly going through, mostly designed for Wi-Fi. We skipped over, of course, the you know, upgrades to Mail, better search, which is painfully needed. The search in Mail right now is horrible. The swipe to inbox, rich text formatting, which means absolutely in the iOS, which is fine. I don't really. Do you use that? I don't really care if it has. I don't even like rich text.
No.
I just indents, flagging, SMIME, which is really useful if you're in a large organization that wants encrypted files. What did you think, Aaron? What did you think of the split keyboard? So Apple is now kind of moved, so if people want to type with their thumbs, they've gotten a way that you can kind of grab onto your iPad and be able to, you know, have 2 different keyboards on either side. What do you think of that?
I thought it looked great. I thought how it slid up, and when it would be where your thumbs are, it would slip apart. It was pretty neat. I don't typically type that way, but I could see if you were coming from a BlackBerry or something where you were more of a thumb typist, it might be comforting.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine actually using it that way, but it'd be very interesting. I've found that one thing that's kind of surprised me is that my number one. I was looking at all my mail that goes by, and I realized that my number one way of sending emails and receiving them is my iPhone, and I'm still using just one index finger, just kind of really fast.
I saw the first use of 2 thumbs on a iPad
in the wild.
Yesterday, it was Ken from Omni, actually, at a party last night, and you know, he's demoing something to me, and he pulls it out, and he's got the 2 thumbs, and he's typing about as fast as I can type on a normal keyboard. So it's doable, but apparently it just
takes a little practice.
Yeah, and maybe this tweak will make it.
And really long thumbs. Ken must have really long. We don't know.
Yeah,
you did measure them.
Maybe.
So. Also, it is we are truly moving to a post PC platform. You know, we now have over-the-air syncing. So as far as upgrades and moving, you know, all the software updates and so on, and deltas. So it means that it's not going to try to put an entirely new OS every single time it runs over the air. It will simply just add the things that have changed. So. I think that's a big move forward. One thing that they mentioned really, really fast that I, you know, jumped onto immediately is they're like, and then you can do all this stuff, and oh, by the way, and they're like listing off all the, excuse me, sorry about that. They were talking about the AirPlay mirroring. So it was like one of the things like, oh, and then we have all these other features, and they're like making this list, and they were like, and now you can mirror it, you know, via Wi-Fi.
And huge cheers from the audience.
Well, and I was just like, you know, and I couldn't believe that wasn't one of the big, and I guess that they didn't view that as a big upgrade. But for many of us who are trying to use this in a classroom environment, use it in a recording environment, you know, to record the iPad and everything else, dealing with all those cables and trying to make all of that work. Now, we're assuming that that's going through that's going to your Apple TV, but it means that you could theoretically hook your Apple TV up to, and be able to now just have your iPad and see the full mirror. And I think this is more of an e-learning solution than anything else.
It's pretty slick.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that starts to open up a whole bunch of other possibilities for building apps too. When you can walk around and have your little controller with you and start to put anything up on that big screen. It's it's where's my jetpack kind of stuff. It's
I mean, think about Sketchbook and being able to AirPlay that to the, very seamlessly sit there and want to draw on this, and everyone can draw and talk about things. And when you think about a meeting, before you were sitting there like, do we have the right connector, and is this going to sync correctly or whatever? But now you can imagine having a presentation, a meeting with about, with 5 or 10 people in a conference room, and you have one airport, and you could theoretically be able to kind of, push stuff up, I guess, depending on how many apps. Everyone would have to be kind of signed into that, but you could have a couple different people sitting there showing off whatever they want to show off in a presentation. So it's very, very interesting.
Well, for us, it's a lot of times we're showing off applications to people we're writing them for, and often you need to get really close. And pretty soon, when you have the vice president of some company sitting on your laps that you can both use the iPad together,
right.
It's not the best sales situation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I also think that there's an opportunity when you're thinking about, if you're taking that, going out to the Apple TV and then taking the HDMI out of the Apple TV and let's say converting it, putting it into your computer, so that you could stream it, you theoretically with an iPad now have a wireless camera.
This is true.
Because you could be sharing theoretically the video that the iPad is seeing and streaming that live without any tethering.
There's a great video called, I'm trying to remember what it's called exactly. I think it's Firestorm. I think it was, the chat room might need to help me out on this one, but it was early, I think it was the Sun Microsystems. Maybe Aaron, you might remember this one, but Bruce Tognazini kind of, it was done in the late 80s, if I remember, and they kind of imagined what the future of computing would be like. And I distinctly remember one scene where they had a lady trying to show some camera shots to the guys out in the field, and she was holding up basically an iPad and panning around, and that was controlling the camera and the view kind of thing. Almost the same size concept. There's all of these things are coming true. It's really amazing.
Slowly but surely. Yeah. So it's a very interesting that mirroring I think will be pretty interesting, and then also Wi-Fi of course sync to the to iTunes, and so those were the some of the big upgrades, and all of this stuff. None of it I felt like and I think that this was, you didn't see Steve up there. I think part of the reason is that obviously Apple wants to build up other people to show that it's not just a Steve show. But I think also these are all evolutionary things. They're all nifty. They're all going to improve our experience as Mac users and developers. But they weren't the revolutionary things. And I don't even know if iCloud could be listed as, and this is what we're going to get into next, listed as revolutionary. But it's definitely a large evolutionary jump. And we're going to get into iCloud next. Of course, that was Apple's big announcement. But before we do that, I want to thank one of our sponsors, Carbonite. And, of course, we're talking about the cloud. and Carbonite, of course, is one of the great ways of backing your files up straight into the cloud. Now, I mean, and we're going to talk about iCloud with Apple, but I don't think this is necessarily a replacement for these kind of things, because we're not talking, Carbonite is storage. So you're actually storing stuff into the cloud. You're not just syncing stuff between all your computers. You are going up to, the thing you have to remember is that, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of bad things out there that can happen to your computer, whether it's being stolen or water damage or fire damage or kid damage, which is the #1 concern of mine at this point, so all of those things are things that can happen, and the bottom line is that you need to get it into the cloud, and so of course it's safe, it's easy to use, it's automatic. You can just have this stuff automatically backing your files up to the cloud, and of course you can get those files back if you have lost them, and of course you can see them from anywhere, your iPhone or BlackBerry. If you want to back it up and have it wherever you're at, of course, Carbonite is just a great way to do it. And of course, it works on the PC or the Mac. It's only $59 a year to have all of that and to have that storage. And you can try it for free if you want to go to carbonite.com/MacBreak. You can give Carbonite a chance and see if it's the right solution for you. You won't need a credit card. You can just simply put some stuff up there and see if it works as far as cloud storage goes. And but figuring out, I think a lot of times people ask me what my backup strategy is, and I say I wanted to have it in 2 physical locations and 1 cloud location. That's kind of my approach. I've got Drobos, that are kind of synced up in different places that keep track of all this stuff. But I also I want to get it out of the terrestrial environment and get it into some other place far away. And Carbonite is a great way to kind of approach that. So definitely check that out. And so now, of course, speaking of the cloud, we're going to jump right into the cloud here. Apple, of course, now allows you to store your content. Now, this is the beginning of the process. I think this is definitely looks like a step forward in an evolution that Apple is going to be building. I felt like it was simple enough that this isn't the whole solution, but I think that it is definitely. It looks like they're moving. Of course, Steve Jobs, in a rare moment of candor, says, Mobile Me, it wasn't our finest hour. Which I thought was very interesting. Apple generally just says, this was really great, but this is even better. Yeah, we didn't see that there. So it was an interesting, but we've seen some of the stuff in the press. We kind of heard it coming, right?
Yeah. I think we talked about it last time I was here. Anybody who's used Mobile Me knows how bad the experience has been, how it hasn't, and I think, it was going to be the solution. So Steve got up there and said, we haven't got it right, but we have learned a bunch of things, and so now we're going to.
And I think that the challenge is that I think one of the advantages of having Mobile Me for that long is that it was fundamentally flawed. The issue was that it foundationally was never going to work. And it was developed in a different time. And it was developed with different assumptions. And I think that what we're seeing here, iCloud looks to be a completely new solution. Just to run down some of the stuff. Of course, Mobile Me, mail, no ads, but of course syncing between all these applications, which we kind of have now. I mean, if you're not using a POP server, if you're using an IMAP server, you're kind of having to some degree syncing. But it is a little. I will say that a couple people asked. They were emailing me about it. Was the question is that how is that different from being on IMAP? Well, one of the things is if you send a document from one computer, you might see people's response on the other side, but you won't necessarily get the document on the other side, which is a little bit of a pain. You can also see all your purchases on all your devices. So you buy something, it'll be spread out. It'll back up the information that you want. It doesn't say exactly how. I didn't really get. Aaron, did you completely understand, or you were there, how the actual backup works that they were talking about as far as backing up your documents?
Yeah, so it looks like it's an incremental backup, so it figures out the delta of all the documents. And so each application can have a document directory on the device, which the users don't see, but the developer does. And I would imagine that's figuring out the differences and uploading those to the server.
And this is really an application by application, so this isn't like you're creating a folder and storing files up there.
No, it's application by application.
Right. So this is so each application can decide that it wants to develop it, which I think is a great opportunity. I mean, it seems like developers are going to almost have to get that in there pretty quickly because people are going to expect it.
Definitely
as they go through. Go ahead.
And it's something that we were all sort of playing with. How do we do? And everyone is hand rolling their own solution. So to have a real Apple-approved API and a known quantity for the server is a huge step forward for all of us.
And maybe confirm this for me, Aaron, but he said PC as well?
He did say PC. I was very surprised by that, but he does say PC as well. So I imagine they're creating libraries for the PC.
Oh, yeah, I looked at that. I was like, what does that mean? Like, what would you put it on? But I guess it's music and so on and so forth. I don't know what else you would I can understand photos and music.
Creating an application on both the Mac and the PC that needed to share data back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
And it's interesting because this is sort of where the difference between the Google approach and the Apple approach happens. So on Google, they say, well, the cloud is the future, but you're going to access it all through a web browser. And so it won't matter whether you're on the PC or the Mac because all your data will be available through this through the browser, which will be essentially the operating system. Whereas what Apple is saying is we're going to store the data on the cloud, but you're going to look at that data through a custom native application because that's the only way we can create a rich experience.
Well, and I
so
think
I would argue that the mobile me failure was that Apple was trying to do it the Google way, and it didn't really work.
Well, and I think that one of the things that's interesting is that I do think that there is this fundamental collision that's going on, and we don't know who's going to win necessarily, or maybe no one will win, is that there is this idea, is everything going to be on the web, or is it going to be on the net? And what I mean by that is, do you have net-enabled applications, or do you get everything through the web? I happen to, I'm not one of those people that so I say this as someone who makes all their money on the web, that I hate web pages. I hate web development. I hate web pages. I hate I just hate the web, and it's this necessary evil that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And it seems that because as a developer, I always feel like you're your lowest common denominator. You have to work across all these stupid browsers, and you have to get it all to work on all of them, and it never works the same way on all of them. And so you end up with just dumbing everything down to something that was a great design, and now it's not. And now it's just functional. And any kind of creativity to me just gets beaten out of you as you work on these pages, and the other side of that, though, the other option is you have a cluster of content, a cluster of data, and you have a whole bunch of net-enabled applications through your iPhone, your iPad, your computer that are simply accessing that content. And that seems to be more of the Apple approach to that, which is what I think Aaron was starting with there, is this idea that you can get to it via the web, but the real solution is to get to it via applications that are now. Aaron, do you see applications being able to share this data between so like if one application is creating certain kinds of content, other applications being able to dip into the same content?
I'd have to look at the API to know for sure. But I would imagine that there would be some sort of a label on your data type, and you'd be able to share it between different applications. I think one of the really curious things about this is that calendar, when we talk about sharing in iCloud, that he said, and you'll be able to share calendars between you and your wife, which is a great thing. But there was no more talk about sharing between people. And I was hoping that there'd be some discussion of the idea of sharing a photo stream or sharing documents with people through iCloud. And there really was no discussion of that.
It does seem to be right now, and this is one of the reasons that I thought that this is a very early conversation. Like, this is the first rollout of iCloud, and we're not going to try to make it any bigger than it are, then we're not going to make a bigger jump. Is that I did pick up on exactly what you're talking about, where I was like, this is all very personal. This is all, how do I use my computer? But immediately, like, for instance, with that photo stream, I was thinking about, the idea, and we were talking about a little bit on the pre-show, of this idea of, what if I'm at an event, a wedding, or some kind of, or a concert or something like that, where you have a bunch of people with iPhones, and wouldn't it be cool if they were able to sync all of that up so that all those photos were going into one place? They were all getting the photos that they as a group are taking, or more importantly, like if you had an Apple TV up there showing a big monitor or a big screen, constantly posting those images.
And then I guess the next step is you want to be editing, multiple people editing the same document. And that's a really hard problem to solve.
Yeah. And it's something that I think that has only just started to really work correctly in Google Docs. I think it was very rough, and it generally works now, I think, fairly well. But it's been rough going through that process. But yeah, so it's a very personal thing. Of course, one of the big things, of course, the thing that we talked about a fair bit is iTunes in the cloud. So now you can once you buy something, you can sync it to up to 10 devices, can just automatically get the songs that you bought. So now you could do this before. I mean, you could plug a whole bunch of devices into it and have them all syncing to the same computer, and they would all get the songs and all get the apps and all get those. You know, that was possible before, but it was fairly painful.
I see. I think this solves a lot of problems for people not exactly like us. Like, I see how less techie people use their iPhones,
right,
etc., and they don't sync. They just plug in their little charger or their little kind of thing, and they never plug it into the machine itself. It's
right.
I don't too much problems, too much just they couldn't be bothered. That's not their kind of day-to-day flow. They plonk it down somewhere else, and now that they don't have to do that, I think that will make as a consumer device it so much better.
Yeah, and I think
All right.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I have a prediction.
Yes.
The Apple Car Stereo. The reason why there wasn't an Apple Car Stereo now is because there was no way to get the 20-pin connector down the driveway and into your house. Now we can have the Apple Car Stereo.
Oh, and it just automatically syncs.
Syncs to the cloud, 3G.
That would be nifty, wouldn't it? Yeah,
That's
would be
my prediction.
Okay, well, we'll have to see. I mean, wouldn't it have to be? I guess it would have to be a car manufacturer actually working with Apple to develop it, right? To get it installed, because.
No, it could be an aftermarket one. You'd go to Best Buy, and it would be there on the shelf, the Apple Car Stereo.
I don't know. I don't know if Apple would do that, though. I don't know if they build an aftermarket anything. So we're getting Leo's calling in.
No, Don McAllister.
Oh, John McAllister's calling in. Okay, very good. So sorry, I didn't read this correctly. So I was like, Don McAllister is telling us that Leo's calling in. How does that work? So yeah, so Don McAllister is going to be available here in a second. Yeah, but I could definitely see some kind of car attachment, that would allow you to do that. But I don't know if Apple would do anything that would require an install. That's the hard part that I have a hard time. It's just they like everything to be kind of self-contained. But now, of course, the big one more thing as we move forward is of course I thought this was the most interesting part of the whole thing. Of course, it was the one more thing. It was what we were all waiting for. But this was iTunes Match. So iTunes Match, $24.99 per year, not per month, which is I said during the thing, which was very off. But $24.99 per year. What this basically sets up is not only can you sync all those things, but people like me. I mean, this is the first thing that when they said it'll handle all your purchased songs. The first thing that went through my head is I ripped hundreds and hundreds of CDs into my collection. A long, I don't know how long ago, 5 or 10 years ago. When I stopped buying plastic, and now what am I going to do? I don't. This whole syncing up is not particularly interesting to me because I can't. Because I'm not going to get access to the vast majority of my library. But this is right now what they're saying: $24.99. You can put them in. It's going to match them and put them in the cloud. Match them in the cloud. So you're going to basically have a backup. It'll sync to all your devices. It'll sync all of those songs. It seems almost like it's one of those things that seems almost unreal. Because theoretically you have a bunch of people who downloaded thousands of songs from Napster and LimeWire and BitTorrent, and it seems like they're just able to legalize the whole process.
But they have to pay the subscription every year. So the big question in my mind when I was watching that is, okay, this is great, looks great. Put all your music up there. If you have it already, it goes up there. And if they have it on their servers, all the better because they give you a better quality version and you don't have to upload it because it's just matching. If they don't have it, then it will upload. How's this going to be paid for? Surely the music companies aren't going to be happy with this. And there's your yearly subscription, your 24.
Now the question is that it doesn't seem like Apple's really doing DRM. So the real question is, unless these are special DRM'd, the question is do you lose access to them if you stop paying your subscription? Or do you just pay for a year and get them all converted?
Free, I thought, Aaron?
I think
it did. It said DRM free. So no, once you've downloaded them to your machine, they're yours.
It's a very interesting puzzle. So, but I guess the only argument I'd say is that it is a it appears that Apple kind of made a deal with I was going to say a deal with the devil. I don't want to say that on a big show about the record industry. Anyway, so but made a deal with the record companies, basically saying, well, you're not getting any money out of these guys now. You might as well get something out of them, right? And also joining us here, Don McAllister. Were you actually at the event, Don?
Yeah, hi Alex. Yes, I was. I'm still suffering a bit from jet lag, so I actually woke up at 4 o'clock this morning, and some friends of mine said they were going to go start queuing up at 4:45, so I went along with them. So it's been a fairly long day up to now, but very enjoyable, I have to say.
So we are near the end of this coverage. We're trying, but is there anything that really stood out for you at the event?
I think there's no one thing. I suppose the one thing in iOS that really stood out for me was the documents in the cloud. It's been really screaming out for some unified sort of sharing of files between all our devices, and I think documents in the cloud is the way to go. And I suffered from that myself with coming across. I wrote some documents on the plane on one iPad. I brought 2 iPads with me, one for testing and one for my live one. I wrote some documents on one. I wanted to transfer it to the other. I wanted to transfer it to my Mac, and it was just a complete nightmare. So that will be fantastic. So that's really good. And the whole iCloud thing, I just heard your comments about this new service, the iTunes Match. Up until they did the one more thing, that was the bit I was really disappointed about. I thought they were just going to restrict it to purchased music, and then the one more thing and the iTunes Match. I thought, thank goodness for that. Didn't quite go right the way through to a full subscription service, but it's a good halfway house, and it's, as you say, it's a great way of legitimizing and getting all your collection up onto the cloud, so you can stream it to all your devices. I think I agree with you. I think they have done a deal with the record company. I mean, they're getting nothing for those tracks that might have been ripped illegally now. I mean, most people have legally ripped music. They've got CD collections that they've ripped, but those individuals that do have, illegal music, they're not getting anything for them now. So they may as well make some money from it, because they're not going to be able to stop them actually doing that.
Well, and the rumor is that Apple paid upwards of $150 million to the record companies to get them to buy. They bought them. They said, well, we don't know how much money you're going to make, but we can guarantee that you're going to make some.
Yeah, well, just think of the amount of investment that they've put into these product launches today. I mean, it's not just the software products, it's the whole infrastructure they've had to build, the huge data centers. They've invested billions and billions, I would imagine, Apple, on putting this service together. So this is, as Steve said, the culmination of 10 years' work, really, to get these services aligned and in place. It's a huge risk for them. I mean, and Steve himself made a big joke about MobileMe, and why should we trust them after the mess they made with MobileMe? But I'm sure they've learned tons from those mistakes that they did with that implementation. And although it probably won't be completely smooth running, I'm sure it'll be a lot better than the MobileMe implementation. And in some respects, they're sort of betting the company on it, because it's such a huge undertaking that they've got to get it right.
Well, and they had to do something with the cloud. I mean, that was the thing, is that you had to move forward. You had to get this, had to do something. You had to start going down that direction. I do think it's interesting. It's a very elegant solution where Amazon and Google, we talked about this a little bit on the special, but when Amazon and Google really took the quick, we're just going to let you store stuff in there. We're not going to ask. They didn't try to go through and get permission from all the record companies. They didn't try to, do all, or they tried, but they decided not to bother. But by Apple, by spending an enormous amount of money on it, basically also solves this problem where the reason they can charge you $25 a year is because they aren't trying to give you, each person doesn't need 150 gigs of storage, because all they're doing is identifying what songs in a central storage area that you have access to. So it's just pointers, which are cheap, right? Rather than whole data.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to wonder whether or not Google and Amazon really rushed to market with their offerings, because they knew, Apple would come along with something probably a bit more sophisticated, because it does feel very rushed. The whole announcement and implementation of the Amazon and Google services does feel rushed. And Apple have obviously had time to do it right. And let's just hope they come through on the execution of that. I'm sure they will. I think they've had plenty of time to get it right.
Well, and one of the things that this is coming up in the chat room that we'll have to keep in track of is this is all a deal that we can assume is only working in the United States. So, I mean, I mean, this is...
I think at the moment, yeah.
Yeah. And,
No, go ahead.
I think Europe's going to be just downright ugly. That's in my opinion. I mean, the rules and the process of that is a bit of a mess. So we'll see how that turns out. Anything else that really stood out for any of you as far as things that we haven't discussed, Aaron?
No, not really. Steve always says the word automatically. Oddly, I find it distracting. He says automatically. Does that bother anybody else? I
didn't notice until now, and now I'm going to think about it all the time. Thank you very much. So, Keith, any last thoughts? Any directional?
I'm looking over our little list here of everything cloud related, and it's some tweaks, better experience, and I think, and just opening up the no longer will app developers have to think about, like Aaron was saying, have to think about how we're going to build this synchronization between our apps, et cetera, et cetera. Here's a really nice way to do it.
Well, and I think more than anything else, I mean, all of these progressions that the cloud service brings is a real, I mean, this is really a lock-in. Where you're, in the Mac world, whether you're a developer or whether you're a user, all of these things are very, very seamlessly pulling you into it.
Did we mention it's free?
Yeah, it's free. Yeah. Like everything other than all of these services, all of these services that we've seen up until other than the iTunes Match service is free. All of those in betweens, and I think that is. But I think that this is just tantalizingly, just so seamlessly pulling people into an environment where you don't want to work outside of that environment, which of course is the point. And once you get into it, I think if you start fully utilizing these things, I think it becomes very hard for you to want to, go outside of the ecosystem.
The thing that grabs me is make sure that password you've got for your Apple account is secure.
Yeah, that's the one thing with all of this integration is like when he said, and you could just have another iPhone and then turn it on, and just all you have to do is code in and it'll just
everything will come down.
Everything will come down. And I thought is like changing my password tomorrow. Because it was just you're going to have to start really thinking as a user about some real hash. Something that's going to be more than just your wife's middle name, kind of thing to make sure that, because it does look like people could get a lot of data really quickly, with a simple piece. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens. Some people asking about carrier data caps. A lot of this syncing, it looked like they were really talking about Wi-Fi. So they were talking about some of it over 3G, but a lot of the heavy-duty lifting looked like it was mostly Wi-Fi and not as much 3G. At least when I looked at the slides when they were going down there. But though, some of it will be 3G, and we'll have to keep. Definitely you don't want to do big syncing over your 3G connection if you don't have an unlimited solution.
Do we know what hardware is supported for iOS 5?
They talked about the iPads, iPhone 4, of course, the iPod Touch 3rd and 4th generation, iPod 3GS,
okay,
but not 3G. I bet you it'll push 3GS pretty hard, but those seem to be all, both versions of the iPad. So fairly, other than the 3G, I think everything other than the 3G in the first two generations of the iPod Touch are supported. So most of what we have, I think, will be out there. So it should be pretty good. Now we're going to be prepping our picks of the week. Don, I know you just came in, but we're still going to make you pick something. So
right.
So get ready. We'll give you a little bit of we'll give you a minute here. But before we get to that, I want to thank our sponsor, Squarespace.com. Of course, Squarespace is. It's just the easiest way to throw up a website. This is the one that I do my little blog in, and actually the public Pixelcore site and the DV Garage site, they're all on Squarespace. The great thing about it, of course, is that it's an easy-to-use UI. I mean, it's just WYSIWYG. You just sit there and draw it out. You have a lot of templates that you can, hundreds of designs that you can start with, but they're fully customizable, and you can really kind of figure them out. And, as we were developing, I know the Pixelcore.com site, Carolyn and I would be sitting there on Skype, moving stuff around and hitting save, and then moving stuff around and hitting save, and we don't know anything about HTML. We don't know how to do any of that stuff. We just kind of move things in and out. We don't have to figure out how we're going to upload it to the server, how we're going to install it, or how we're going to, what's going to happen next. And then if we needed something that we really wanted to inject code in, we could have coders, kind of finish that off. But you have all the modules that you need in a standard website. So blog modules and form builders and Flickr photo displays and Twitter widgets and Amazon widgets. I know I have a bunch of that stuff all kind of added on to my to mine. Is I just able to kind of throw that in. I think my blog, which is bordersack.com, 4 hours me fiddling around, and most of that was creating the seamless texture that is the whole thing was most of the time that I spent on it. The rest of it was pretty straightforward. So
the thing I like most about it,
yeah,
is I mean I switched over because of MacBreak Weekly kept telling me the benefits of it, and so I have a little blog called UIandus.com, and it's just techie UI interface related stuff. Everything's fine. You write these little blogs with dreams of huge amounts of hits to your site one day,
right?
And Mr. Gruber links to it once or twice, and
right.
the thing goes down, right? And
yep.
so no, I can't have that, because you've lived this dream of one day somebody's going to pay attention, and the day they do, it's not working because everyone's looking on that one day.
Exactly.
So this is I switched over. That's it. No more. I want to be able to be in that situation where it can spawn out as many machines doing whatever it needs to do to make sure everyone on that one day clicks that link, sees that little piece you've written. And
well, and I've helped a couple people now get their sites up, and it's funny for me to be helping people get their websites up, because it's I don't know anything about HTML, and I've purposely decided I just wasn't going to learn any of it because I was afraid otherwise I'd be fiddling with it, and I don't have time to do that. So the thing is that but I help people get their sites up because I said, that's the one you want to use, because I don't want to help you fix it later. I don't want you to do it in some other format that's more complicated, because I don't want you to have to come back to me or whoever I put you to make every single change. I want it to be easy and for you to just be able to change the things you need to change as an average user. And so anyway, Squarespace is just a great way to kind of make that all work. Now, you can get a 14-day free trial. You don't need to use a credit card or anything else. You can just go up to squarespace.com/MacBreak, and you'll get 14 days for free. And depending on how long you sign up, you can get up to 20% off. So definitely check that out. It is, you don't have to take my word for it. You can go up there for 14 days, build your own website. I think you're going to find that this is really the way to do it. If you're not a developer and you just want to get a website up, a blog or your company website or your location website or your event website, this is just a fast and easy way to make all of that work. So squarespace.com/MacBreak. And now we're going to go around and start picking some software. Keith, do you have hardware or software to recommend?
Last time I was here, I had 14 picks with 16 other things. So this time I've just got a little tiny one.
Very good.
And it's called Haze Over, and it's in the Mac App Store. And all Haze Over does is makes your most active window, the frontmost window, look more obvious by making everything else just a little bit dimmer. So it adds a kind of a semi-transparent background behind your frontmost window.
So it's not a single frame. Not a single screen. It's not filling up the screen.
It's not full screen. So if you're not using a full screen app, which I'm sure by this time next year we'll all be full screen all the time.
Right.
But the thing I find on the Mac is I just don't find there's enough. Sometimes I click something or I start typing and I didn't realize the window wasn't frontmost that I thought it was. I just find that there's just not enough contrast between the most frontmost windows and something else behind it. Right. And so this just lets you add a little layer of semi-transparent kind of black behind, or you can adjust the transparency. Right. I can't remember what it was, but it's a very cheap little utility, and it works well for me. And you can adjust a bunch of things. And so if you find yourself clicking on the wrong window occasionally, you wish it was kind of clearer. What's the most active? What's the frontmost window? This solves it for you. So it's called Haze Over, Hazeover, all one word, and it's in the Mac App Store.
How much is it?
Oh, I have to look it up, but it's cheap.
Yeah, it's the new Mac App Store environment is not usually not too expensive. Yeah. So all right, Haze Over, and Aaron, do you have a pick for us?
I do. So this week I had to do a lot of image editing, and so I upgraded my Acorn image editor to 3.0, and I was reminded of just how much I love this thing. It's $49. I find Photoshop baffling, But Acorn is very responsive. It does everything I need it to do. It's a reasonable price. It's available on the Mac App Store. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's from a company called Flying Meat.
And one of the things about Acorn is that a lot of the stuff is much more GPU enabled, I think, if I'm correct, where a lot of that stuff is happening very quickly.
It is. I think he's done a heavy use of core image. It's very responsive.
Yeah, very good. So Acorn and by Flying Meat Software. Now we're going to Don McAllister. Don, do you have a pick for us?
Yeah, go on then. What I'll do is I'll pick an iPad app this time. It's I still, even though I get lots of news through Twitter, I still use RSS feeds a lot. And the application that I'm currently using on my iPad to access my Google Reader account is an app called Mr. Reader. That's READER. It's relatively inexpensive. It's $2.99 on the App Store, and it's really nice. As I say, it integrates with your Google Reader account. It's highly customizable. It's got integration with lots and lots of different services. Really nice, clean way of reading RSS feeds. You can configure the controls, so if you like to have the sort of thumb controls on the left-hand side or on the bottom or on the right-hand side, you can configure them whichever way you like. You can sort of scroll through articles just by dragging the articles off the screen. Really nice application. So that's Mr. Reader, and that's $2.99.
Fantastic. And now we're just about at the end, so Andy, all there is to do is give us a pick. We always know, your picks. We couldn't miss that part. Andy has been, while we've been chatting away, Andy has been slaving away on his article for Chicago. I'm assuming for Chicago Sun-Times. Is that right?
For the Chicago Sun-Times. It'll be online probably in the next 20 minutes to a half hour with a longer piece to follow sometime tonight. But there was a print deadline that I had to deal with.
Yep.
It's no fun having to write like 900 to 1,000 words in about an hour. It's just not fun. Alex, the movies make it look like it's so much fun, but it isn't, I tell you.
So we're winding down, but do you have a pick for our listeners, or do you need a minute?
Actually, I would need a minute. Yes.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and run my pick, and then we'll come right back to you. So the pick that I have is for probably about 10 years, I have invested probably an inordinate amount of money in learning languages that I don't really learn that much, but I pick up enough that I can actually understand what's going on. And so it's not like I'm masterful at many languages, but I go to a lot of countries. And so when I go into those countries, I try to at least pick up a bunch of the nouns, pick up a bunch of the pieces. And one of the things that I've used for the last 10 years is software, or it started off as like director applications from a company called Rosetta Stone. And I just found out yesterday that Rosetta Stone has released their iPad app. So it's their Total E HD by Rosetta Stone. And so I just got Total E because I'm slowly working through. I've gone to Paris enough times now that I'm slowly working through French, just so that I can, so the Parisians don't make fun of me, which is important, not to be made fun of by the Parisians. They look at you like there's this like sneer that goes on when you talk to them in English, and so, or bad French. And so, but here's the thing is that it really is, it's actually a better experience than the actual application that they had is on the iPad. One thing I'd love to see is, I would love to see them actually make this available offline, because the time that I like to use Rosetta Stone the most is when I'm actually in a plane. So, but it is a great interface. It has many of the same features, and I have to say Rosetta Stone in general is a little bit magical, where you start going through these little things where you're just identifying the words and identifying the things, and before you know it, you remember all of that vocabulary, and then when people are around you, it's not that in the couple weeks before something, it's not like I'm going to become fluent, but when I'm there and having conversations, I can kind of understand what people are talking to me about. I can understand what's going on, and of course I could get a lot better. I just haven't been able to push it. And one of the reasons that I wasn't able to push it was because I didn't like opening up my laptop. And it has been going through my head for years that if I only had this on my iPad, where I'd just be able to sit there and work through this stuff on my iPad, I would be fluent in 10 languages. Well, now here's the test, because I've got an iPad app that just was released a couple days ago, and so I'm going to be trying it all summer. But I'm very excited about it. Now, the thing to know is it's free, but you need to have a Totally subscription to one of the languages that you're actually using. I'm hoping that they're going to port Swahili, which I think is still in the old director format. Evidently, they don't sell a lot of Swahili not nearly as much as French. So I'm hoping that they're going to port that because that's the one that I'm really digging into more than anything else because of my work. And but it is a great way. So Rosetta Stone, I've tried most of the other language training, and I haven't found any of them that I learned nearly as fast as Rosetta Stone. But I needed it to be on my mobile, my iOS, and it finally has made it over. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, definitely check it out. If you've already been using Rosetta Stone or you're using Total E, definitely it's a great, beautiful interface. Now it's still connected to the web. But it's a great step forward, so definitely check that out. And now we're going to go back to Andy, who is ready for an stellar pick.
Well, stellar, slightly last-minute pick. I have, that I'm a big user of my iPad. I will like to travel with it and leave my notebook at home if I can possibly get away with it. One of the few things that hasn't really made the transition for me yet is blogging, where if I want to update my blog or someone else's blog, I still tend to use the actual web client via Safari rather than finding an iOS app to do it. Because before now, every single app I have used and seen has been, what is the word that rhymes with duck, only it has the word S in front instead of the D, and it makes me want to harm living creatures whenever I use this app. There's a WordPress app that's done by volunteers. God bless them. They invest their time, they invest their passion, but every time I've installed and tried a new version of this app, it'll do something like it'll lose my entire blog post when I switch from one app to another, or it'll post, but then it will destroy a previous thing that I'd posted. Just really, really terrible. The closest thing to a really good blog app I've seen so far is called Blogsy, and it's on the App Store for, I'm just looking it up right now, I believe it's $4.99. But it's there you go. It's currently priced at $2.99, and it's really nice, slick little editor. Not only does it give you like regular support of both WordPress and Blogger apps, but also has a really cool little interface where it's got an editing view and then an HTML view. So you just flip it over, and now you can start editing HTML. Line 2's gone offline? You still there? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, we're still
there you go. So you can easily get into, like, if you need to if you need to use CSS tags to style your stuff. Also, it's really well integrated with all the usual social content services. Like if I've posted something onto my Flickr feed, I'm sorry I don't have this posted. I don't have this on the screen behind me, but if I want to take something out of my Flickr feed, I can just tap this Flickr button in this column here. I can just simply tap my photo stream. It'll give me a list that will populate of, there you go. It's starting to download, but it gives me a list of thumbnails of stuff that I've recently uploaded, and all I have to do is just drag it into Blogsy, and
That's
suddenly
great.
that picture's there, right? And so it works with YouTube, it works with Picasa. It has a preview that'll open your blog post directly into Safari. It still has some rough edges, but it's definitely given the state of blogging apps on iOS right now, I will take a blogging app that works, is quite usable and functional, and will not cause me to lose stuff that I've just written, nor the stuff I've already posted to my blog. The time when I really I have a goal. I hold myself to a standard for my behavior of the person that I would like to be. I would like to be the person who doesn't shriek, "What the just happened," when I'm using an app, hit post, and then find out that, oh, not only did you destroy the thing that I just sent you, somehow you took the 2,000-word blog post that was already up there that I posted that I posted on Mars Edit, and you destroyed that off the server as well. So now I'm going to have to go into Google, find the cache, and get that article back because you were not happy just destroying what. Oh, good God!
Not that you're bitter.
I'm still a little bitter. I will cop to being bitter. I am, as regular readers and viewers don't need to be reminded, I am but an imperfect vessel for the universe's perfection, although I try to mend myself on a daily basis.
So what in the name of that application again?
It's called Blogsy, Blogsy, and it's from Bibson. The official site for it is Bibson. No, I'm sorry. No, that isn't it. My apologies. I did a quick.
Is it on the Mac App Store?
It is. It is on the. Well, it's on the iOS App Store.
iOS,
it is
I'm sorry.
It is £2.99, and it's from a company called Famola.
Okay, very good.
So if you go to blogsyapp.com, that's where you can get the whole dog and pony show about it.
Very good. And Andy, where can people find you?
You can find me at my website, The Celestial Waste of Bandwidth, at either Ihnatko.com or CWOB.com, or just go to suntimes.com, where you can see my work for the Sun Times, and on Twitter, I am Ihnatko.
Aaron, where can people find you?
Alex, can I put in a quick plug for a contest we're doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Big Nerd Ranch does training and contract programming, and this year has been very good to us, and we want to give back a little bit. So we are having a contest called the Mobile for Global Good, and the idea is that a lot of people have ideas for applications that would make the world a better place, and we're going to pick one of these people and let them come to the class for free, and then we're going to let them hang out with us for a week while we help them get started or hopefully complete their application for a week in the Big Nerd Ranch office. And we're taking suggestions, we're taking entries starting tomorrow. So you can go to our website, bignerdranch.com, and you can find the information there.
That's a fantastic. I can't wait to see what comes out of that.
Me either.
When is it going to end? When is the
submissions are due by June 24th, okay. And then we'll pick who we think is most worthy.
Excellent. Very good. So, and it's called Mobile for Global or Global for Mobile?
Mobile for Global Good.
Very good. Very good. And Don, where can people find you?
Yeah, they can find me over at screencastonline.com, which is the weekly video tutorial I produce. All the other social media links, etc., they can find it over at donmcallister.net.
Very good. And Keith, where can people find you?
They can find me at skitch.com. That's skitch.com. That's not just my accent. And I wanted to mention a little thing that got a lot of laughs in here, actually. Yeah, just want to quickly mention that I've just been part of a new app, and we're running a WWDC special, and it's called Prototypes, and it's on the Mac App Store. It's basically a little app that lets you easily take existing mock-ups and turn them into an interactable mini website, essentially a little painless experience of getting your mock-ups into an interactable thing on the iPhone that you can play around with. And we're doing $10 off just this week for WWDC. So if you go to protottypesapp.com.
So this is basically, you can throw up you can take your Photoshop, bring it all in a couple layers, and then figure out how you want. I'm going to click on this, and something else is going to happen, and you can kind of wire it all together.
Yeah, so draw some hotspots, wire it together. Work out, is it going to work on the device? Are the buttons too small?
Right.
Does the navigation make sense? Click a button, and it uploads to it. There's integrated hosting, so it's all. You don't need to know anything about hosting or have servers or know anything. You can just be the person who has an idea and play with it on a device and see if it's going to work.
Sounds awesome. So yeah. I downloaded it, and I haven't gotten to dig through it very much yet, so I'm looking forward to it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Prototypes is the name of the application. Definitely check it out. And just a reminder before we go anywhere that this you could have something that looks just like this, except not with the twit. It would be your logo and your name. I think there's big ones. This is the big one, right? So this is the big one. But you can also just get your name, a couple lines, and these are the bricks. The thing to remember is that the new studio is really big and really cool, and you could be part of the foundation of putting that together. It's bricks.twit.tv, this is your chance to get your name on the wall at Twit, and also really support the incredible investment that Leo has been putting into this, and the whole Twit crew has been putting into the new studio, which is just going to be fantastic. I mean, they painted the floor over the weekend. It's kind of smelly right now, but it's going to be great. That's all I'm going to say. I guess that's not a very good ad for that, isn't it? It smells like wet paint at the moment, but it is. But really, these bricks are. I'm getting this one. This is a big pixel core one. It's going to be on the wall. I'll take a picture and show it to you. But definitely check it out. Bricks.twit.tv, and support the development. So thank you very much. And without further ado, we're going to end this. Get back to work. MacBreak is over.